Esther, just start the conversation with
Cady Coleman here is a real astronaut. I'm just somebody who trained with her. We're here to tell you that space is a beer party.
Or we're working on it.
Yeah,
and you're invited.
maybe a schnapps party. So just to set the scene slightly, you were hearing about art and exponential growth and symmetry, and also how art gives you a different view on the world. And Cady will tell you briefly who she is and also what she's adding.
Okay. I think vision and providing vision to people is just so important. This is, you've been watching a Earth observation film taken from the space station. This is a picture of Esther and I.
At a beer party.
At a beer, yeah, I guess, well, not quite. Probably on our way, right?
A virtual beer party.
But we both trained in Star City, Russia. And, you know, Esther came as a person from outside NASA, outside ESA, to be a backup for going to the space station. And, you know, we have a pretty amazing world, but when you bring somebody like Esther to it, then we all learn something. And that's what this conference is really all about. And we just happened to be there at the same time. And my world certainly got about a zillion times bigger by meeting Esther and listening to some of the things that she cared about, which I'm hoping she'll talk about. We wanted this to be more of a conversation. My name is Cady Coleman. I'm an astronaut. I flew twice on the space shuttle, doing experiments, launching the Chandra X-ray Observatory. I saw some Chandra pictures in there. Chandra shows us everything, literally, that we know about X-rays come from the Chandra X-ray Observatory, and I was proud to be on the team that launched that telescope. But I think we're really going to focus more on the space station, partly because, you know, on a shuttle flight, you get up there, you look at the Earth, you're so busy doing all these different things. But to actually live up there, that's a place that we belong. And I think the thing that I really learned is that Earth is this big, and I always thought space was somewhere else, and yet I found out that really space is a part of where we live. It's just not enough people have been there yet. And a little bit of this is Esther training. Do you want to talk about this?
This needs some explanation. So this is me in a bath of plaster of Paris, which is what they use to basically get your shape so they can build a small seat for you on the Soyuz capsule going up to the station. And these two ladies here are, of course, Russian, and they're saying, "So, what we do with her now?"
Exactly. And it made me smile. I hadn't seen these pictures. I did the same thing. I had a 10-year-old at the time. He thought it was pretty cool that basically they would spend a day making a mold of his mother's butt. And in fact, they make negatives, positive negatives, and there is a hall of butts that is not allowed to be photographed.
So I want to ask all of you for a moment. I noticed this some time ago, but when I look at the moon, no matter, you know, if I'm walking along in the dark wondering if I'm going to get to the party I'm running to or it's late and I'm going home, I look at the moon and it changes my mood. It makes me smile. How many of you does the moon sort of give you a sense of, yeah,
it just puts you in context with the universe, really.
So the point is, you don't even need to be an astronaut to kind of get out of the world and sort of see things in more perspective. But to go back to what Cady said, I was a trainer, I was a trainee, I was backing up Charles Simonyi. I was a client of an American kind of space agency called Space Adventures that bought my backup role and Charles Simonyi's actual travel role to the space station from the Russians. So from the point of view of NASA and sort of the officials, I was just like some appendage to the Russians. But from the point of view of the NASA astronauts,
she was just another person coming with us, another human leaving the planet and representing all the humans up there.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of the practical thing
all
was
the humans down here.
They invited me to dinner every night. The food in the Russian pilot's cafe was awful.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a firehouse where Russians, Europeans, Americans, stray people of any kind. And tell them a little more what it's like up on the space station.
And it's a special family, and I'll just have this film. Actually, I love Esther's patch here. It says, "Always make new mistakes," which I think is, if you're doing that, you're doing pretty well. And this is Esther's crew as the backup crew watching the launch from Kazakhstan of the Soyuz. And I've got about a minute and a half film here that shows you a little bit about what that was like. And walking out, climbing into a rocket. They have smaller rockets than the shuttle, and you feel every single little bit of what it takes. I just remember the thought that it is really hard for people to leave the planet. And that means that people don't have, not enough people have this point of view. And at the same time, with technology, we're able to show, you can see what it felt like, what it looked like, to live in a place where you fly everywhere. You can share, now that we have just not these grainy video things in the newspaper, you can see a little bit of what it was like to live up there. Because these shuttle missions were so short. And to be up there as a person, when you're going to be up there for 6 months, then you're going to bring a piece of yourself, which means you're going to bring a piece of people down here. And I really just means so much to me to have better and better photographs and video, to be able to describe and bring other people with me up there, to be able to look back and see our planet, because it's a view that you'll never, ever lose. And Esther alluded to the family of space travelers. And it's something where, as soon as you are part of the people who are trying to go, and that also includes the trainers and all the people part of the mission, there's no question it's a family. And one of the things that I think Esther and I really rejoice in and continue to is that it's completely international. I mean, the Association of Space Explorers is everyone who has ever been to space is invited, and it doesn't matter what country you come from. The US and China don't necessarily, and in fact, by law, are not allowed to share space knowledge. And yet, in that association, we have American, Russian, European, Japanese, and Chinese astronauts. And even with the politics that we have going on, in the past years, the space station itself, that project is sacred. And we still go, we still have visas, we're still sending 3 people every few months up to space. And it's some combination of American, European, Japanese, Russian, despite the politics. And I think we can take a lesson from that.
Yeah, but let's get less lessony.
Okay.
And
I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah, we'll do that in a moment.
Yeah.
Why did you want to go to space in the first place?
I didn't until I was in college. It's not something I always wanted to do, because girls didn't get to do that. And the fact that Sally Ride, first American woman astronaut, came to MIT, talked, and I just thought, wow, I could just relate to her. And that's what the power of image, the power of sharing. And I've always loved science and technology, and I've loved understanding how that works. I'm a chemist originally, but I'm also, I knew that because I was a very well-rounded person, and because I was really good at being on a team, I knew that I could bring things to spaceflight that I didn't see when I would look at a photograph of astronauts that were selected in the 60s and even in the early 70s, that by being somebody who was different, I was going to bring something different to space and bring something different home.
So from a beer party, it became more of a tea party?
I'm kind of more in the beer category, really. In fact, can we read my shirt here, which
Sure.
I wanted to celebrate. I mean, I didn't design this shirt. It was from the NASA gift store. But it says, Mars colonization, extract water, grow grains, make beer. I mean, when we're trying to help, I love the talk we just had about art and science and how, art can help people see what we really do up there.
Well, what got me into space, I
think this is great to share.
Yeah, well, my dad is kind of loosely affiliated with space and physics and everything else, so I wasn't that interested. I figured he'd taken care of it. And then around about 2000, it became clear that actually things weren't moving forward that much, and I got much more interested. But fundamentally, it's like curiosity. And I think that's what drives human beings. I mean, one is kind of expansion, but expansion into space isn't visceral. As you said, it takes so much energy. It might take only 9 or 10 minutes to get up there, but that 9 or 10 minutes are pretty serious, and there's a huge amount of stuff around you, and, metal and fuel and everything else. But what I really wanted was to be weightless for more than 30 seconds at a time. I wanted that to become boring.
And, I think you could rephrase that and say, I wanted to live in a different world.
Yeah.
A world I knew was out there. And it's a magical place. I loved living up there. I would have spent another 6 months in a minute. I mean, my hand was up, really would have loved to have done that. But, in these talks, today and in the people that we meet at coffee, those are different worlds as well.
Yeah.
That you can explore. That you could take great joy in. And the fact that somebody like Esther, who could actually go anywhere in the world she wants to and probably do anything, the fact that she chose to come to space, I think is very significant and bears thinking about.
Yeah, but then there was another guy, I don't want to name him. He was a very honorable, straightforward Republican military pilot guy. You can probably guess who that was.
Oh, we have a few.
Yeah,
but actually,
you had quite a few. But,
you should not stereotype. And even when they look like that and they think like that and they're affiliated, they still bring something.
And this is the point. He actually did not want to go. This is like his 3rd or 4th mission. He had a family member who had cancer. But for a number of reasons, there was somebody unstable around, and this guy felt it was his duty to go. So he didn't want to go. NASA assigned him, and he went. And that
There's
really
a passion
impressed me.
for mission.
Yeah, there was a sense of duty there, because it is dangerous. It's like, I have no kids. I could have, but for this guy, there were people down here counting on him, yet he fulfilled his duty, and that was inspiring.
And I would say that's the thing that surprised me. I retired from NASA about 3 years ago, and because I'm a former astronaut, because I'm an astronaut, I mean, people will talk to me, they will meet with me, they will answer my emails, and it's a privilege, and it's a privilege that was literally a gift and a responsibility to me by having been selected as an astronaut, by having even gotten to train. You're one of the only people that can talk about these things. There's things that Esther and I know that nobody else knows, and yet if we don't talk about them, people don't know. And actually, I'll maybe show when the phrase was, what are you adding? In my retirement life here, I'm doing speaking, I'm doing educating, I'm the global explorer in residence at Arizona State University because I think they're changing the face of education and sincerely believe and are walking the walk that everyone deserves to be educated. And I'm interested in helping with that. Because I'm a good vehicle, I can help with that. I think this is a good example, I think, of what can you add. Someone, they asked, basically one guy at the Irish post office was tasked with making the commemorative series of stamps for the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. And he said, he took a big step. He goes, what if we put people on the stamps that are still alive? Because he had a secret wish to want to have women and minorities on stamps. And so in this series, it is Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Eileen Collins, the first woman commander of the shuttle, and myself. And kids in Ireland, when they go mail a letter, are using these stamps, and they're going to think it's really normal to do these kinds of things. And I think because Astronaut is so sort of out there, like, could I be that? When they realize that somebody normal can do that, that means they can do the thing that they are so very passionate about. And another sort of perspective from space is a group called Earthrise Alliance, where they basically believe that they know that there's so much Earth observation data out there from satellites, and yet it's like having the world's treasures in a vault with no inventory system and no way to access it effectively to tell the stories that we need to tell today especially about climate change, and sometimes about other things. This is a remarkable story that was celebrated in Reuters as the story of the year. They got a Webby Award, a number of different honors, and it's about showing basically when the Chinese government was denying that the Uyghur camps were being built. This was they figured out with data that's all publicly available, but not easily so. They basically showed that these are the camps that are being built over time. And this is our last slide here, but
So we can do Q&A.
with that,
We can do Q&A.
oh, go ahead. Yeah, and so I'll just say that this is not myself. This is Tracy Caldwell Dyson, and I show this picture, and every time I speak, if I can, because I think it's the epitome of a person, a human, and their perspective, their relationship with the earth. That we look back and we bring these photographs and these images back so that everyone here can use them to understand that we're all together. And not only is it just one people on the earth, but we can all find each other. We can make those connection a day. I loved what I heard in the last talk there, that we can be connected together if we take the courage to be brave about who we are and open to who others are. And then we can take these steps and be part of the chain of what are you adding.
So we're going to add something almost unique at DLD, which is Q&A. And if you have a question, raise your hand. Don't wait for a mic. We'll just repeat it after you. But anybody got a question? What's it like? Where's she?
In the back.
What was the scariest moment you
moment?
had? And then I'll tell you the scariest moment on Earth.
Well, I'll say, scared of making a mistake. The Chandra X-ray Observatory, $1.8 billion. And it's about scared of making a mistake. And I say that because I think it's important to realize that everybody brings their different skills to the table. And, for me, learning how to use preparation to not let that distract me, but also to realize that, people like me need reinforcement and confidence building and those kinds of things. Because somebody who, really feels like they have something to share, but sometimes lacks confidence might think they couldn't be somebody like me, but I am me.
So the irony is, in my space training, which was 6 months, I was backing up Charles Simoni. And of course, we were learning space plumbing and space medicine and what to do if, there's a pressure drop and you need to pull the right oxygen lever and all this kind of stuff. But the worst thing that happened was actually Charles got bitten by a rabid dog right down on ground.
Holy cow, you almost went.
Yeah. For a moment, I think he thought I had arranged it somehow. But there's a certain irony to all of that. And we didn't have maps of the campus because it was basically a military installation still. So there were the Earth part was just as fascinating as the space part. There was another question.
What was the moment of your greatest hope?
The moment of your greatest hope.
The moment of greatest hope is just looking back at the earth. And I mean, it's so beautiful. It doesn't seem fragile, actually. It seems like it's the most amazing, wonderful place. And the greatest hope is that everyone that could solve problems is down there together. They just haven't all met yet.
And mine is to retire on Mars, but not too soon.
All right.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left.
How many people have been to space so far in total? And how is that going to change the commercialization of space travel?
How many people have been to space so far? Something in the neighborhood of over 600, something like that. But the answer is not enough. And how is it changing? It's changing for the better because, these commercial companies, they bring in new ideas. NASA can't afford to take big risks with people or with hardware. No one takes big risks with people. But with hardware, these commercial companies can say, I tell people, sometimes they make decisions and they don't even have a meeting. And that's pretty amazing for NASA. So that there's so much more that's possible together.
And in honor of that, she's wearing a NASA t-shirt. I'm wearing a Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' space company's t-shirt. What happened with the internet, which was the commercialization and also the profusion of startups from its large, giant, centralized computers to lots of startups, is happening in space. And that's what's truly exciting, but there's a danger, which is space debris. And that's going to be the next panel. And
Well, I know that the the title of the next panel. It's something. Is it the tragedy
Of the commons.
It's got a big tragedy
Yeah.
of the commons, and yet I would say it's also the hope of the commons. I mean, it's a big problem, and I think you'll hear that it's not going to be easy, but it's fascinating what we can do when we're together, and the fact that some of those connections are still so very important.
It wasn't easy, and you are here, and thank you, Cady.
Well, thank you, Esther. So nice to see you.
Great.